Hi, I'm Alec from EasierHabits.com. I coach work from home dads in designing and building their ideal life, one that they are proud to share with their kids and model for their kids. So last week, I talked about one advantage that parents have in starting and maintaining new habits, and that's their identity as a parent. Really, if you want to beef up your motivation to start a habit, that starts with identity. And the big problem that a lot of people have when they're trying to build up momentum for a new habit is they draw on the wrong identity. I gave the example last week of trying to start a habit of planning when I felt like I was a lazy procrastinator, right? And trying to change and flip your identity to the exact opposite is not very effective. However, what you can do is try and tap into an identity that is meaningful for you. So I just want to underscore from last week, really, that the thing that made the difference for me was I didn't think I was a clean person. In fact, I felt like I was a messy person. But I didn't try and build that habit in order to change my identity as a messy person. I built that habit around who I wanted to be as a parent, and that was an identity that was meaningful and powerful to me. And that's not the only time I've done that. I've actually done that with writing. I was an English major. I could never write a novel in a million years, I thought. I'd always get stuck like halfway through the first chapter. And I was trying to rely on my identity as a creative person, and that's a pretty weak identity for me. I don't feel like I'm that creative, and I certainly wasn't writing enough to feel like I had an identity as a writer. But an identity I do have is I'm a coach, and I can teach people how to take big projects and break them down into little habits. And so basing that life change on that identity, I just completely reformulated how I did my writing sessions. And I designed them into little habits that I could do and wrote a very rough draft in 3 weeks. So that is an example of just getting over a block by using a different identity, tapping into a different identity that also inspired me to design my habits slightly differently in a way that worked for me rather than trying to do what works for my favorite author or for people doing the National Novel Writing Month, which never worked out for me. So again, this is really powerful, and I see it all over the place in people I work with. There are people who want kind of to change their health habits, but they don't have an identity as a healthy person, but thinking about how they want to model their behavior for other people, how they want to be an example for other people, what kind of leader they want to be, how they want to show up at work or at their family. Thinking about those things helps them revisit their habits and start from a stronger perspective. If you're interested in habits and identity, go ahead and check out James Clear's Atomic Habits. He goes into more depth there. So even though I've just been talking about how to start your motivation for change with tapping into an identity that is meaningful for you, and that is how I got my first habit, that isn't how I got excited about habits. That's not when I really understood deep in my psyche how to make big life changes out of small habit-sized steps. And that is something that came later when I really understood how to develop an addictive habit. Some people spend their whole lives just picking up one habit or trying to retread the same habit over and over again each year at New Year's, dropping it and feeling like they have no discipline and feeling guilty. You can go your entire life that way, but there is a way to much more quickly find habits that work for you and develop an excitement and an addiction around that habit, just seeing the results you can get in just a few minutes of habit practice each day. So I didn't really figure out for myself how to develop addictive habits, or what I like to call giving habits, habits that give you more than the energy you put into them. I didn't really figure that out until my second habit, and it was a couple years after my first. So I got my first habit, the cleaning habit, when my oldest son was born, and then a couple years later, we moved to Japan so my wife could run an English immersion school in remote Japanese mountains. This is way out in the boonies. We weren't even in the ski town. We were in like the small satellite village outside the ski town. And so we arrive somewhat late in the evening. We're super tired and jet lagged. A super nice Japanese couple that are caretakers of the school drive us up this dark, windy road way up the mountains into this set of condos we're going to stay. It's this big building. It's very empty most of the year, but there's a few people there because we arrive in January and it is ski season. And we go into the apartment, just pass out. And when I wake up the next morning, I have a really hard time breathing. And it's not so bad in our room, but I go into the kids' room and try and let my wife sleep in a little bit more. And I am super allergic to the kids' room. I get to the place where my throat doesn't close completely, but I am gasping for breath just lying there. And then eventually I get my wife up and she talks to the caretakers and they take me down to the doctor. And this wonderful couple, they translate for me so that I can get the medicine I need. And so I have my problem kind of solved. But really, I don't want to be dependent on medicine to breathe in our apartment. So I decide, well, there's probably something I can do that will help me deal with these allergies. And I thought of allergies as something permanent, something unchangeable. I've had hay fever and other allergies forever. I've just been in dry areas most of my life, California, Utah. Right now I'm in Texas, but drier areas, at least areas where there's not a lot of mold, but in Japan there is a ton of mold and I'm super allergic to it and I need to figure out like what can I do? At this point my options are stay on medicine the whole time in Japan, quit and move back to the States, or figure out some way I can change or reorganize my life to deal with my allergies. So I did what anybody would do when they're seeking information and searched the internet. What were things within my control that I could do to reduce allergies? And I found all sorts of things, and some of them weren't really habits so much, like having air filter in the apartment. We got one. Some were kind of habits, like wearing a mask over my face, and it did help actually. But I didn't really want to wear a mask forever around Japan. Japanese people do it when they're sick, and so like watching this dude wander around for a month with a mask on makes you wonder like what's up with this guy. And so there were other ones like trying to drink more water to flush stuff out of your system. There's brushing your teeth more often to get allergens out of your mouth. There were all sorts of things that I tried, but one thing that was really interesting that I noticed a couple articles talked about is how you might be able to control your allergies with yoga. And the theory behind this is essentially you have allergens, that you're inhaling or ingesting, and they get into your bloodstream. But if you do some gentle yoga, that would get your bloodstream going just enough to filter the allergens out more quickly. That's the theory. And actually, as I tried this a couple times, I'd do like a 10 or 20 minute session, I'd find that I would drain my nose very quickly after yoga or even in the middle of it. So like it literally was draining the allergens out of my system. And that's one of the key things about finding a addictive or giving habit, right? You have to find something that makes a tangible difference in your life. Snot is kind of a strange signal, but that was a very good sign when you're trying to get allergens out of your body. So I saw that this habit actually led to some kind of reward. What I had to do is actually build up the discipline to do it every day. And hopefully early on in the day, right? So that I can conquer my allergies early in the morning and have more energy and ability to breathe throughout the day, right? I don't want to wait till like 10 or 12 a.m. to be able to breathe. My problem at this point was that aside from cleaning, I really didn't have any habits, and that cleaning was sheerly motivated out of guilt. I didn't know how to get myself to do something that wasn't motivated by this deep revulsion of my sense of inadequacy as a parent, which is not a good motivation. So eventually I started paring it down to being as simple as possible. I basically had a checkbox that I would check every day if I did any yoga at all, and that includes 20 seconds of downward dog before bedtime. And so just by making myself accountable to doing something every day, I started to actually retrain my brain to expect to do yoga every day. But I wasn't doing really at an optimal time. You don't want to do it at the end of the day, you want to do it at the beginning of the day. And so I eventually attached that to a time, doing a certain amount of yoga at a time, and I would start with very small increments, like a minute. I would do one sun salutation or something like that, something simple. And then slowly that became 5 minutes, and then eventually 10 minutes, and I found somewhere between the 10 and 15-minute mark, that is where I would be able to be mostly allergy free for the morning. And not only that, not only was this getting my blood going so I could filter out allergens, I was less cold in a very cold apartment in the middle of a blizzarding mountain village. And I was also more awake, more alert. So it had a number of benefits. So like 10 minutes of effort gave me at least 3 hours of measurable difference in my life experience, like several tangible differences. And this is what I called a giving habit. Did I do yoga absolutely every day? No. But the difference between a non-giving habit and a giving habit was the days where I didn't do yoga, I missed it. I didn't need to rely on discipline to get back into doing yoga. And so really what happens is it just became a thing that I did. I did it for years until I found a habit that was even better for my allergies and helped me be alert not only for a few hours, but throughout the day. So, I kept tweaking yoga and it eventually became something completely different or was replaced by something fairly different. But the whole point is I found something that had a tangible reward, and I experimented with a lot of small habits, not ones that took hours. I didn't dive into, all right, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour. This was just, all of these things were short habits, a few minutes, 10 minutes tops, right? And I experimented with them until I found one that had tangible results. And once I found that, then I scaled that practice up just to 10 or 15 minutes. And then I implemented that. And really what I found personally is if I have something that makes tangible results in my life, a tangible difference in my life, you really only do need 2 or 3 weeks to find that habit, it becomes addictive. You might not be doing it every day, but when you don't, you miss it. And the days where you don't, because you miss it, because you don't feel as good, because it's not as productive or whatever it is, those actually become reinforcing rather than sapping your strength and sapping your momentum. So that's how you create a addicting, or what I like to call a giving habit, a habit that gives you more than the effort you put into it. And that whatever your problem is, there absolutely is some kind of habit out there that will make a substantial difference in a relatively small amount of time. So if you're following along with these videos and trying the tips out, I hope you maybe took an inventory last week of what identity is meaningful to you and how you can use that to change. Maybe this week, think about what it is you want to change. Research a whole bunch of different ways you might change that, but try and limit that just to things you can change in 10 or 15 minutes. And then go ahead and experiment with those. Find the one that gives you tangible results and scale that up. Don't worry about what works for other people. If it doesn't work for you, if it's not rewarding to you, it's not going to be a good habit for you. So next week, I would like to talk about how to put this all together, the big picture, how to take big, scary, overwhelming problems in your life, things that you want to change, and break them down into small habits. Because ultimately, there are no big things in life. Everything in life is made up of smaller steps, and if it's scary and overwhelming, it's just because you don't see those steps yet. And you don't have to know all the steps, and usually you won't see all the steps at the beginning. If this video has been helpful for you, go ahead and hit the like button or the subscribe button. That will help other people find it and help them with their habits. And of course, if you know anyone who is trying to make improvements in their lives or trying to be the best parent they can be, go ahead and just share it with them. The more people we share this with, the more people I can help. And my whole goal is just to help people design and build their ideal life. So go out there, make big changes, one small habit at a time, and I'll see you next week.